allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public input. What's that?
Caitlin had her baby.
Yes, actually, I have a short announcement she wants me to make to that effect.
Huh?
So our very own trustee, Caitlin Downey, had a beautiful baby girl this weekend, Josephine. She wanted to thank all the admin staff and trustees for their generous gift for their new baby, and she appreciates our thoughtfulness and can't wait for everyone to meet our newest patron.
There you go.
Nice.
Very excited.
Yeah. How old do you have to be to serve on the board?
Older than that, I think.
All right, so there's another point I wanted to make up. At our last meeting, we briefly touched on a concern one board member had with what he believed was a conflict of interest for another trustee. We went into executive session to discuss this further, but I think it's important to kind of bring out what we had discussed in executive session. And so, for the public, per our counsel, and this is taken straight from her email, with regard to employment contract negotiations, a trustee who is the spouse of a library employee does not have a conflict of interest and can vote on anything regarding union contract negotiations. He or she can and probably should recuse themselves from votes that affect their spouse, but in no way, shape, or form have to. So I think we discussed that in executive session, but I thought it was important to get it out there. And secondly, opinions were shared about trustees' efforts on the labor committee. And because that trustee was not there at the meeting to give their perspective, I just want to remind the public and everyone that these were in fact one person's opinion and don't necessarily reflect what actually happened. So with that, I give anyone a chance to speak up if they would like. Yep.
I have something I want to read here, okay, addressing the situation. Back in the spring of 2018, I signed up to represent the community as a trustee for what I consider to be an oasis on Western Avenue, the Gildan Public Library. The passion was so strong for me to drive for our expansion, our renovation, represent the great employees that make up the Gildan Public Library, and encourage new and different programs and the events that the library could offer. I did not sign up for the constant wrongful accusations from trustee Barry Nelson, of which I can now feel I believe I was bullied. And in my belief, he went too far. As identified in the 2018 edition of the Handbook for Library Trustees under the Public Library Trustee Ethics Statement, quote, trustees shall respect the opinions of their colleagues and not be critical or disrespectful when they disagree or oppose a viewpoint different than their own, quote. As a total of 4 different occasions, trustee Barry Nelson accused me of wrongful doings in public meetings. That being July 18th was the 4th and last time. I do not want nor need to identify each occurrence as it is too private and it's recorded in my notes. I had a meeting with Tim Wiles and Margaret Garrett on Monday, July 22nd, after I first became aware of the activity of the board meeting on watching Facebook. I then met with Brian on July 30th for an hour and a half, talked about the conduct of the meeting, and then met with Tim Burke from the Upper Hudson Library Association on the 31st. As a result of my meeting and determination, I do believe the behavior of trustee Barry Nelson will not change toward me as a trustee, nor do I believe or welcome his behavior in other actions from the past as identified in my notes. I'm also having a tough time accepting how the last situation was handled at the last board meeting, from the administration, from the board chair, and from the board. Therefore, please accept my resignation from the board as the trustee of Gildan Public Library, effective immediately. Thank you. I do believe it was so wrong the way that meeting was handled. I wasn't here to to give my point of view, and to this day, do not know what was discussed in the private meeting, in the executive meeting. So we have, and my notes
Thank
are
you.
there. Okay?
Mike, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Thank you for everything. I'm sorry to see you leave, but
It's the best. Good luck.
thank you.
Yep.
The irony here is I think we no longer have quorum, right?
Don't you have a quorum if,
When we began, it's all.
Ah, okay,
Okay.
so we are still continuing,
Well, we have a quorum until someone suggests otherwise.
okay. So Barry, you may want to respond, comment, or you may not. I would ask to reserve anything for executive session, but certainly, we are sorry to see Mike go, but believes it's best. So, continue our meeting, onward. Okay, so, next up, the treasurer's report. Before Chris starts, I just want to remind everyone that Chris is a temporary treasurer, and that we are actively trying to pursue another treasurer. So if anyone out there watching is interested in the position, please contact us at the library. My email is on the website. You can also call Tim at the library. And this also goes for the trustees. We're looking for a treasurer. It's not a super intensive job, but we are definitely looking for one. Chris has said he'd serve short term, and we appreciate that, but reach out to your friends, family, whoever, and we'll do our best. And that's something we probably have to promote, Luann. We're looking for a treasurer, but we'll discuss that in the future. So, with that,
Do they have to live in the Guilderland district?
I think so. I think we looked into it, because Chris obviously doesn't, so,
Okay.
yeah, there's really not any real requirements for a treasurer, oddly. But yeah, anyone who attend meetings, that's the most important thing. So, with that, I turn the floor over to Mr. Aldridge.
Okay, so, if you've looked over the income statements for July and August, you can see that our income is up and our expenses are down. Starting with July's statement, on the grants line of the statement, you'll see a $9,536 grant, and that is an Upper Hudson Library Services grant. Under the miscellaneous income, there are two small Upper Hudson Library Services grants that total $752.52. Those were for a couple programs that the library did, which were grantable. Any other questions for the income area? Okay. So for the expense line, we were down in expenses so far in this fiscal year, in large part due to the payroll categories, and that is because the CSEA contract negotiations have not finished. So generally the increase in salary will be retroactive. So
When are they retroactive till?
July 1st.
July 1st, that's when the contract, okay.
Yes. So it would be this budget, so it doesn't mean that all these monies will still be in there once negotiations are done. There's also an unanticipated expense, or maybe it wasn't anticipated, in the buildings and equipment cleaning maintenance spot, which is the next page of the August, it's actually the August report. At the very next to the bottom line, there's an expense of actually it's $6,207. I think that was on the right page.
It's included in that graph.
Is it July?
It's in the August, but
It
the
is.
figure that gave you was part of that. So
Right, it wasn't the whole
It
thing.
wasn't the whole.
Right.
Do you have
So-
another copy of that? Because I think It's supposed to be in the packet, but I
Is
didn't
that
see
the
it.
income statement you're talking about? or-
Income statement for August 31st, 2019.
Oh, did they,
Okay.
There you go.
thanks. The email
Yes.
separately?
And it's what,
There's probably in your
6,000
box
something?
there, but-
Yeah, I didn't grab the second set.
Okay.
So I'm on the second page of the August income statement.
Yeah. Where is,
He's talking about the building, equipment, cleaning and maintenance
Yes,
line.
exactly. So the, one of the air conditioning units had to be repaired. And of that $7,000, $6,200 of that, $207 of that was the cooling unit, repairs to the cooling unit.
okay.
Mhm. Is that, are we still gonna likely be under our budget this year with that, or?
Yes, the budget's $30,000, but in that $30,000 is snow removal,
Okay.
I think purchase of salt and things like that. So, majority of that is when the winter months come, of that 30,000.
So this isn't like a huge hit to
No,
that,
it's not
okay.
it's not a crazy amount, and I think it was somewhat anticipated.
Now, those units are under warranty.
No. It's an 8-year-old.
They're pretty old, yeah.
So it's the first, it's the chiller unit, otherwise known as the cooling tower, it's out on the loading dock. And it was the first component that the library replaced of the HVAC system, and we're now beginning with the building project to replace the very last component, which is the makeup air units that I'm pointing this way because that's where they are on the roof. And it was not anticipated that it would blow up, but it's serviced by Colony Mechanical and by another company, and the other company's job is only to test the chemical balances in it. But I happened to be, Lou was not here and I was here the day that that guy was cleaning it and talking about it, and apparently, according to him, chiller units do not last as long as they used to. He thinks we have another 7 or 8 years for this chiller unit. The first one ran from 1992 when we opened to approximately 7 or 8 years ago, so I guess about 2011, 2010. 18 years. He thinks this one will probably go about 15 years. And we can continue to get more opinions on that. Hopefully we don't need to, once we replace these makeup air units over here, hopefully we have no HVAC work to do for 5 or 6 years, But it was an interesting decision. I was not here when we began the process of replacing the whole HVAC system piece by piece. There's about probably 8 different components that have been replaced over time. From a financial point of view, I think it was a good decision because it limited the number of, the amount of dollars going out at any given time. And also, you really can't expect every component of a complicated system like that to fail at the same time. Some have longer lifespans than others. So I'm comfortable with the decision that was made, although I note that a lot of libraries and probably other buildings like this tend to revamp the whole HVAC at once. We didn't do that. There's no point in really thinking about that. I wouldn't recommend that now because we've got some brand new components to our system. So it is what it is, and we're going to do whatever we can do to try to keep it maintained and keep it alive.
So was this covered by one of our grants from Upper Hudson?
No. Well, when we put it in, it might well have been, but that was before my time.
Okay,
So,
now
yeah.
the replacement won't be.
Right, yeah. I mean, there was no replacement to do this time, just a repair, so, yeah.
Right.
So, yep.
A replacement probably would be covered.
Yeah, I would think, yeah. Yeah, it's a totally a mechanical piece.
Right. So that's all I have for the income statements. Any questions on the income statements besides what I covered? Okay, in regards to the status of the audit report, Tom Hosey from Marvin and Company notified Carol that the audit report is completed and it's been referred to their internal review department. So that will be, we'll receive the finalized report shortly, probably in the next couple weeks or so.
I think the short-term plan is to do a audit committee meeting to get our initial read of it. And then to hopefully, I think, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but hopefully at our next monthly board meeting, we can have the presentation of the audit by Marvin and Company. And I hope it's okay to say that initial indications are that it's a good audit. So,
That's the financial report
yeah.
Yeah.
that we got last June, June of last year. We got that, or it was dated anyway, June of last year.
I think it took longer last year because of the switch from one type of accounting to another, and because it was the first year for that firm.
From Marvin and
Are
Company.
you talking about
Okay.
last year? Yes. Last year, there was a change in the way we were doing it.
Mhm.
That was the biggest thing, and I had to go through all that, and then there was a lot of actuary stuff that we had to do the first time, and that had to be done. There was a lot of more detail stuff because it was a new audit by them and a new way of doing the audit.
Has this been paid for now? Because the check
What's this?
register says progress billing under Marvin and Company for $10,510. Does that mean another bill is coming?
I think the total bill is generally around 15,000.
15 total. I think there's one more.
Okay, so there will be another bill
Yes.
coming. Okay.
Any other questions?
So what is our process going forward, is to have our audit committee look at the audit? Is that generally how we operate?
So Marvin usually, last year Marvin came in and presented to the audit committee. And I
Okay.
believe Alex that came to the board meeting and presented it.
Right.
So-
We didn't actually have the auditors present to the board last year.
Okay.
They presented to the audit committee. And then,
Should we switch that? I mean, I'm good with having, I like our audit committee, but shouldn't the auditors present to the board? I mean, is that?
Comes to the board, that's
Well-
been the usual process.
that was the old process, but it turns out that in most institutions, the audit committee gets the presentation, and then
Really?
a member of the audit committee presents it to the board.
Hmm, interesting.
But you can do it however we want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right, well, I guess maybe that's something for the audit committee to decide. Well, I forget, I know Caitlin's on it, but I forget who else.
Alex Zhang and Neil Banerjee, and aren't you a member, Chris, as the treasurer, or don't know?
I generally just put Chris on all committees, so there's a good chance.
Audit committee is Caitlin Downey chairs, Jason Wright, Neil Banerjee, and Alex
I think I'm
Zhang.
invited to it, but
So, okay.
Yeah.
strict member. Yeah.
Thank you.
So-
Same with the
He's on
finance.
the,
So you and Caitlin got a meeting with,
Chris is-
did you hear any of that?
I heard some of it.
All right,
That's
so
what we
audit
had-
committee has to meet to discuss the audit.
We're the ones
within the
supposed to do
next
this
month.
presentation.
Well, Neil did the presentation last year, he probably would do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to meet as a member of the audit committee has to meet in order to do the initial review of the audit, unless,
So we just have to schedule a meeting.
Yeah.
And then
But also
present
figure
something.
out if we want the auditors to present it or you guys. I mean, other than maybe last year, every other year, the auditors had presented it.
That's what we did in the past.
Yeah,
but-
so,
All right, I'll talk to Kate.
yeah, talk to Caitlin, and then, obviously, our two audit, like ad hoc members would have a ton of experience hopefully in this, so,
I mean, unless there's an issue, I don't see why the board has to get a full presentation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, the audit committee are the ones with the expertise, are the ones that
Yeah.
are going through this,
and Jason, I know you just came in, the audit is not actually finished, so Carol or myself will let you know when it's finished, because there's no point in scheduling the meeting until it's finished.
All right.
But it should be kind of imminent, correct?
Mhm.
oh, so usually a couple of weeks. before
Couple weeks.
the review.
This is Caitlin, she's chair, right?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right.
she's, well, you may not know, I started the meeting with, she just had a baby girl this weekend, so she may be
Nice.
Indisposed.
indisposed for a little bit, so you might have to take on a somewhat greater role.
There might be a youngest member of the audit committee ever.
Yeah.
I used to bring kids to meetings, you know, so.
I always.
I thought we were gonna have
I-
you
oh,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was waiting for my wife to get back. So she just got back a few minutes ago, and here I am. I didn't want to bring him. You guys have no idea.
You would have missed an eventful beginning of the meeting, that's for sure.
Any other questions? Very good.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, do you have time to stick around for like 5 minutes? Because we have I have a question on the next
Yeah.
agenda item after we approve the check
Thanks, Chris.
register.
So we want the whole treasurer's report and check register, or separate?
Yeah, let's do it all together. Makes life a little easier.
Everything okay for you?
So, is there a motion to approve the check registry and the treasurer's report for July and August? Motion Motion by Barbara, seconded by Phil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, adopted. All right, next are committee reports. There was just one thing I wanted to mention before we start the committee reports is, I know everyone had an excellent summer and they were all rested up, but now that summer's over, we really got to get the committees going. Policy, audit, obviously. So I just want to remind everyone now that summer's over, we really got to amp up. I know that you are preparing, so it's not as much aimed toward you, Barry, but
I need to get moving.
yeah. So all our committees got to get moving, and I have a lot of faith that you guys will get going. So with that,
Hang on.
yeah.
So we missed a bullet point there under the treasurer's report.
That's right.
So
It's important.
one story about a bill we already paid and one story about a bill that I'm going to hand deliver tomorrow. With Butler, Rowland, and Mays, I made a decision on the fly earlier this summer to ask him to include these 3 rooftop air units in the building project and in the grant proposal for this year. And that caused Butler, Rowland, and Mays, I happen to think it was a good decision, but or else I wouldn't have made it, but it caused Butler, Rowland, and Mays to have to kind of, call in a favor basically from an engineering firm in order to get the engineering done quickly so that we could include it in the grant proposal. And as such, Butler, Rowland, and Mays reached out to us in between board meeting times and said, the engineer provided services that cost money and is billing Butler, Rowland, and Mays for those services. So we're billing you, and we'd like to get those checks signed very quickly. So if I remember events correctly, I checked in with Brian and we signed the checks. I think you came over and Brian and I both have signatory powers, and we took care of that. So in other words, we asked Butler, Rowland, and Mays for a favor, they asked an engineering firm for a favor, and then we signed those checks with the authority that we received from the board. There's a pair of resolutions passed a few years ago that say 2 things, basically. They say that in between board meetings, the signatories can sign checks. So the signatories would be the president, vice president, and secretary of the board, plus the director or assistant director of the library. We can sign checks if finance charges would be incurred if we didn't sign them. And as you know, there are 2 months of the year where the board doesn't meet, I think February and August. So that's why we passed that resolution. I have the other resolution with me, and quite frankly can't remember exactly what it says, but it covers, and I can read it to you, it covers other kinds of situations where you might need to sign a check and you aren't at a board meeting. The second story I want to tell you is about a company in Guilderland that sells us about 25 newspapers on a daily basis. And we go there and we pick them up. And this company has to prepay the distributor in order to get these on a daily basis. And we stop down and we pick them up and we put them in the library. And quite frankly, without having daily newspapers, that's kind of a big part of what a library does. This company has not had their July invoice paid, they've not had their August invoice paid, and we have a rotation of employees who stops there every morning to pick up these papers, and pretty much every morning this company says, you're 2 months behind in your payments, we need a payment. So the short term is that the check has been signed because we're at a board meeting right now, and I'm going to go deliver it first thing in the morning. The request I have for you is that I think we either need to, if we're going to take 2 months off of having board meetings, we either need to have signatories meet to sign checks and then approve them at the next board meeting regularly, every August and every February, so that we can, on the one hand, this is a small local business, and some of our checks go to National Grid and Amazon.com, and those kinds of companies can obviously survive without our check necessarily being timely. But it just seems to me good business practice to pay your bills under their terms, which are usually net 30. So I don't know what would need to happen, but I think you either need to give me and Margaret the authority to sign them if you're not gonna send a signatory in August and February, or commit to sending a signatory in August and
Is
February.
it possible to pay any of these bills online?
I don't think so.
I pay some online that I can pay, but they're small.
Because the ones that come up every year, every month are
Yeah.
the same bill, can't, that be paid online?
But isn't that the same problem? Don't we have to approve those 7 payments, or no?
Pay them, yeah, we approve in the check register once.
Yeah.
They're listed on the check register.
Okay.
Okay.
And
A couple of other organizations that I'm in that run into that similar kind of problem, just, paying bills on time, do a resolution each year authorizing the payment of usual and customary bills to be done without having to go through the entire board or directors, whatever the group is called. So that way, those kind of bills that are what Tim's talking about, like the newspaper and stuff like that, can get paid immediately without having to wait for a board meeting that might get canceled or just doesn't happen on its own sometimes too. So I don't know if that's
That seems like a reasonable solution. So when I talked to Tim about this, I'd like to send it to the finance committee to kind of look at, but like that's exactly what I was going to have them look at.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the best practice here, and what do other organizations do? Because
Yeah.
we can't be the only organization this has
No,
ever happened.
as I say, these are the ones I'm involved in, the 3 other ones. It's the terminology is usual and customary bills, which again, that would be covered. It doesn't have to come to the entire board for pre-approval. I mean, the board finds out about it, it's not like it's kept hidden.
Yeah.
But again, that way they can get paid and the vendors get their payments.
I love it. All right, so I'm going to kick it to the finance committee, but that's the exact type of thing I'm looking for, is unusual and customary. And so they have to kind of figure out that policy, but
So let me throw in there,
Yes.
thank you for doing that. I just looked at who's on the finance committee, and Caitlin chairs it, it looks like. And that makes me think that if I remember correctly, and maybe Chris Aldrich or someone in the room can help me remember, maybe for that audit committee meeting that we're going to have, maybe it's a joint meeting of the audit and finance committees. And that way you get most of the board between those 2 committees exposed to the initial results of the audit early. It would mean that 4 or 5 members of the finance committee would have to give up an evening to join the audit committee.
I think, if I recall, I think the audit committee is just a smaller version of the
Yeah,
finance committee.
yeah.
So it would just be the finance committee. But yeah, it'd be a couple
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, it's Alex and Neil. You can't have an audit committee meeting, I don't think, without a quorum, so you need Jason, Alex, and Neil, assuming that Caitlin is not going to be there, and 3 is the quorum of 4. But I seem to remember that we had a joint meeting last time to hear the initial results.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so maybe I'm just wrong.
I mean, it might be a good use
So-
of your guys' time to just do have both, but
And anybody can come to those meetings.
yeah,
Sure,
of
sure.
course, and encouraged to, by the way.
And by the way, adding to what Brian says about committee meetings, I'll come to any committee meeting you want me to come to. But there might be some committees where it's theoretically possible to have the meeting before dark. So feel free. We've got meeting rooms here. If you want to meet at 8 in the morning, I
Well,
can
if
make it
there is
happen.
a majority of board members present at such a meeting, doesn't it have to be publicized?
Yes, yeah. Any committee meeting is publicized, correct?
Well, it's not if they're there, I think it has to be publicized if they're required to be there.
Yeah, yeah. Not that they, like, if you're a board member who's not on the committee,
Right.
we just basically, the easiest thing to do is publicize every committee meeting.
Yeah, that way we never get in trouble with that.
Yeah,
Publicize it to the public as well?
yeah, yeah.
Harry?
Okay, I have a question, and Tim's mentioned it, my question is about. For committee meetings, we need a quorum, correct, to have the meeting? Now, is the quorum, like this audit committee, there's a couple of members of the committee that are not trustees. So does the quorum have to be the committee as you provided, or is the quorum a majority of the board members who are on that committee?
Majority of the committee.
I would say it's the majority of the committee. The audit committee is like an ad hoc committee, which is specifically, it's like the design steering committee, it's put with a lot of non-board members, so those can meet with, with a number of members present, but not necessarily a majority of trustees present.
Okay, so quorum is the committee as you have provided,
Yes.
not just the board members who are on that committee.
Yes.
Thank
And I
you.
think those only go with ad hoc committees, which aren't in the bylaws. So any of the committees in the bylaws, that doesn't hold true.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
It's a lot, I know, it's not.
Well, I've been puzzling about that for a few months anyway, so.
Well, we're gonna give you another puzzle, because when we just start discussing the long-range planning, we're gonna also talk about that as well, so.
So there is a related question to what Barry was
Can
asking.
can I mention just, I
Yeah.
think you can have the meeting, you just can't conduct any official business. You
Oh,
can't-
yeah, we can always have a
can't
meeting
vote.
without quorum, but
Yeah,
can't really.
sometimes, I mean, we've had finance committee meetings where we haven't done anything official, we've just
Yeah,
continued the process, keeping it moving, because there weren't enough people.
yeah, you just can't like vote, I guess.
Can't vote, right.
So, within the last couple of years, some board members have expressed the opinion that, which I happen to agree with, and I want to make sure that this is our standard operating procedure or not, that all board members should be apprised of the date and time, location of any board committee meeting and should be welcome to attend. So that's question one. Is that the way you
Yes.
collectively?
Yes,
Okay.
totally agree.
Okay, and question number two is, for purposes of a quorum, let's say there's 5 board members on a committee, and 2 of the board members on the committee show up, and another board member who's not on the committee shows up, do you have a quorum?
No.
It has to be members of the committee.
Yeah.
Except in the case of the ad hoc committees, where the people that are, like Alex and Neil with finance, count toward the quorum? Okay, got
Well,
it.
3 out of 5, that would be a quorum, wouldn't
Right,
it?
right, but only if they're committee members.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
All right, we're getting into the weeds, I like it. Okay, so we feel sufficient with that issue with the checks, so finance will look at it. Moving to long-range planning, I know Barry and Tim have been meeting.
We had one meeting.
Okay.
Because I wasn't really familiar with what that committee is. So I met with Tim to get his knowledge and, just understanding of where we are. And, get brought up to date. Jenna has somehow amazingly taught me how to use the doodle poll.
Good.
So now that I know how to do that, I am going to be, next week, I'm going to send out the doodle poll so that we can get a meeting going at the beginning of October.
So you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah,
So I wanted to bring up, and I think Tim mentioned this to you,
yes.
and this is one of the main reasons why I kept you here, was adding staff to that committee.
Yeah, we had discussed that, and Tim brought it up to me, and I thought it was a good idea, but I was going to bring it up to you.
Perfect. I just wanted to discuss it out loud, and I wanted to
Yeah.
get their opinions, because you guys have been around and you've probably done a couple long-range planning, and I guess I don't remember
If you're
how it's
talking
been done in the
long-range
past.
planning, they can't be on the committee, they can only be, they can attend it, but they can't.
The staff,
Staff, it's not an ad hoc committee.
So they can't vote, but they could attend meetings?
but we
Okay.
would strongly encourage them to
Yeah.
attend.
But our
the staff.
regular committees can only be established by trustees.
Okay.
Okay, but they can be at the meeting, they just can't vote, but they can
Yes.
contribute and be
Right. Yes.
part of the meeting.
Yes.
Is that how
So-
you would remember it? Okay.
So that raises a couple related questions. So Barry, when Barry and I met, we talked about the possibility of naming one member to the committee, one staff member. And then I later talked to Margaret and also to Maria Buell, and they recalled that previous long-range planning committees had 2 staff members on it. So I'm interested in 2 staff members, if that's okay with Barry. as
And him, so it'd be
Yeah.
3 that would, I guess they wouldn't necessarily technically be on it, but they would be attending every
Yeah,
meeting and
and-
giving
and-
kind of
and-
the normal input.
And what I had told Tim when he first proposed it to me was that I thought it was a real good idea. I mean, the more ideas you get, especially on a committee like Long Range, the planning committee, the more ideas you get, especially from the people who are actually here day in and day out, it's got to be good. Okay, again, my concern, and I had said that to Tim, was I wasn't sure if they would be able to vote. You know,
Sounds
but,
like we hashed that out.
but again, to me, you know, the more ideas and, you know, the more you have the staff buy into something like that, then if we go, you know, if we turn around and, you know, we make some decisions as a board and it goes back to the staff, it's not like this is coming down from on high with, you know, you have to do this. It's, hey, these decisions or these recommendations, you know, were by everybody, including your own staff people. So, I told Tim I thought it was a great idea.
What you could do is make that long-range planning committee, which I think this year we combined with building and grounds, and ad hoc committee, and then they would have a vote.
Well, I like that, but in my recollection of my 5 years here, they've always been combined, and I've always thought it was odd that they were combined, because they're two different things. The
And the
building
long-range
and the-
planning, you only do like
That's
one
why-
every 5 years.
Oh, you have a point?
Yeah.
Hold on, Chris has a point.
You can have an ad hoc committee that's part of the long-range planning committee, so that the long-range planning committee can have smaller committees. So if you have, like, you can have working groups that bring work back to the committee, and the committee makes the final decision, but
I'll leave that, I mean, that seems like.
I'm just
pretty
saying, if you
expensive.
wanted to do that, you could do that.
That seems like you're complicating it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there are
Yeah.
different tasks for different groups to do,
Yeah.
I wanted to do that, you could.
Well, what I'd like to try again, I'll set up the doodle, I'll set up that doodle thing as Jenna, you know, fantastically showed me. And once we get the meeting, we'll see how it goes with having two staff members, non-voting part of it. And if we need to make tweaks to that, we can always come back and do that.
All right, I guess my only ask would be just include them in the staff or whoever you pick in the doodle poll, but
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
My one related question is that I'm of course fine with whatever you guys decide, but I'm fine with the idea that staff members would be on this committee and would not vote. But procedurally, does this committee need to vote on anything? Doesn't it reach consensus on a recommendation to the full board and it gets voted on at the full board? Or does anyone recall, like, I don't want to talk so much, Barry, about the future, but in the past, I think you just brainstorm a list of ideas and you say, does this seem good to everyone at the table? And or to the majority of the people at the table, which I guess is a vote. But like, do we need to vote on a draft document that's going to be presented to the full board?
Why don't we wait and see how it goes,
Okay.
first couple of meetings?
Okay.
If, you know, if you think, or if they think that they're not getting heard enough, then, you know, we can discuss that and tweak it a little bit that way. But, you know, in my mind, it's, everyone sits and discusses it, and if we do have a vote, a specific vote on anything, let's say we want to, you know, we have 8 issues and we want to recommend 3 of them at a time to the whole board, we would vote on those 3. If there seems to be a problem with something like that, you know, then we can revisit it.
One other wrinkle in
I'd like to at least give it a chance,
Sure.
you know, see how it works out.
Fine with me. One other wrinkle I would throw in there is that it's gonna, despite the fact that I don't mean to sound self-serving, if the staff is not gonna vote, that's fine, but you might want to consider letting the director be the one staff member that has a vote. You know, it seems to me, and I don't play this card very often, but it seems to me that I am the chief staff member.
Yeah.
And I might be someone whose vote would be helpful to the elected.
It's
So-
contrary to the bylaws.
Oh, well, then we don't want to do it. So-
Yeah, I guess I would just try, it sounds like trying to bring up voting too much. That might be
Yeah.
the best way to kind of
Yeah.
navigate this. Chris,
I
you
think
wanna
it's mostly going
say
to
something?
be discussion.
Most of our committees, we don't vote. I mean, unless it comes down to something that you have to make a final decision, there's 2 sides that
Well, you would
are
think
opposing.
theoretically you should be voting on whatever final product comes out.
Yeah, but it's usually consensus.
Yeah.
Usually we just
Yeah.
ask, everybody
Okay.
agree with this, and everybody says yes.
All right, so then it's
Make
just,
it
there's like a
official.
vote, but
Yeah,
it's not an
really
official.
an
Okay.
official vote.
Yeah.
Straw poll.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's like the budget, the finance committee puts together a budget
true, we don't
together.
really go line
And we
by
saw
line.
everybody good with this, and everybody says yes, and
Yeah.
blah, blah.
And of course, you can use your input to influence other members of the committee.
I could
too.
try her, but I don't.
Okay, so it sounds like we fleshed out the long-range planning. Do you feel good with this going forward?
I feel good as long as Jenna's training holds, and I
Do you
don't
wanna
forget what she taught me.
Add anything from your experience?
Can I do a very short report on the building
Yes,
project?
please,
Okay.
thank you.
The Design Steering Committee meeting on the 12th of September was canceled essentially by Paul Mays. And the purpose for canceling it was that, to put it bluntly and quickly, the only reason to have a meeting on September 12th was to have a meeting on September 12th. So where we are in the process involves a lot of waiting. And so right now what we're waiting for is the firm, the architectural firm, to finish the detailed drawings that then go to the engineer to prepare bid documents. So that's happening. We got an email today that we're under SED review, so our state ed review started today. There's a lot of preliminary work to get it into their hopper. And I'm going to tell you the status of that. Just keep in mind that there's sort of a lot of, if you remember the old parable of the blind man and the elephant, everybody's touching a different part of the elephant, and so they think the elephant is a different thing. But the way it appears to me and to Paul Mays and to anyone else that I've talked to that's associated with this project, State Ed had a 2-year backup for a long time on these kinds of projects. And so they created a system where people could pay to expedite their project, and State Ed hired engineers to look at these things nights and weekends and so forth, and those engineers were happy to earn money. And so pretty much everybody with a project in the pipeline paid for an expedited review, is my understanding. And the upshot of that is that the non-expedited review process is currently estimated to take 2 to 3 months. So we, as opposed to 18 to 24. So we had made a decision earlier, it wasn't a resolution or anything, but we had discussed expediting our review, and it appears to us that is not necessary at this point to expedite our review. And I hope that I come back to you, in the, probably the November board meeting, and say that the review's done and that we made the right decision. But I may have to come back to you in the October and say something changed at SED, and there's now a 12-month period again, and so we may recommend expediting the review. But any cost, like for expediting, any cost of any kind that you don't have to spend is a good thing. So right now, Paul's recommendation and mine is forget about expedited review. Regular review should work fine for us. And then the one other thing that's kind of before us right now related to the building is that there's excitement in the community, in the staff, about the project. And it's my responsibility, along with Luann's, and really arguably yours a little bit as board members and staff, anybody who represents the library, to let me start with Luann and I. We need to develop a mechanism to regularly update the public on where we stand right now. And I just said it in a public meeting that's being streamed on Facebook. Right now it's a particularly hard time to say because, well, we're waiting. That's what we're doing. Thank you. We hope you'll wait with us. We're excited about the future. We're working on a web page. We do mention it in the monthly column that's in Our Town, which is read by quite a few people. And we do a little social media on it. So we're working on ways to update the public. And I'm sure that if you're out and about, you're getting asked, hey, when does the work start? And the answer is we don't necessarily know, but we hope to go to bid in October of 2020 and to begin work as soon as possible thereafter. And that's currently the goal. So any questions about the building? Okay.
Next is finance and audit, which I think we basically covered. Next, personnel, labor management.
Not much was done over the summer. We have given our proposals to the union, and we're just waiting to hear. And then for executive session, we'll do some more in-depth discussion.
Okay, great. Sounds good, Barbara, thank you. Policy,
Can I speak a little for policy?
yes.
Oh, Noreen's here, I'm
Noreen's
sorry.
here,
I knew you were coming late, then I knew you came in, but I can't see you in
I'm
my
that
normal
quiet.
view. You go ahead, you go ahead. So,
I don't think I have anything to report right now on policy. It's been a quiet summer so far, so I don't remember any
okay.
meetings or anything.
So if I may then update a little bit. There is one policy in particular that needs updating because of a change in state law, and it is that it's now against the law to smoke within 100 feet of any part of the property of the public library. It used to be within 100 feet of the entrance. So we have, and there's also now a stipulation in the law that if the library allows smoking within 100 feet of its property, it can be fined up to $2,000. So we are proofing right now some signs that we've ordered, two kinds of signs, permanent signs that mount on metal poles like near stop signs and things like that, and also yard signs that we can move around as needed when we notice groups of people smoking within 100 feet of the library. So we need to update that policy is the upshot. So.
The last time we worked on that, I remember us working on mirroring the vape stuff with the cigarette items. Is there anything in addition to that we have to work on?
So the vaping law is very similar, but it's a different law. And so we went back and forth a lot in the admin department, and it's good that you bring that up because you may tell us to go back to the drawing board. Did you actually order those signs today or no?
No.
Okay.
They're
So
just in the proofing stage.
they're in the
right now,
proofing
to make sure
stage.
that's what we want.
So the vaping law is a different law than the smoking law, and the, I think it's the sort of the state not-for-profit that tries to keep people from smoking has recommended language about the smoking sign that quotes the exact number of the law. And I was saying to the rest of the admin team, we should just add "and vaping."
That's
But
what we did when we did the policy.
the policy says "and vaping," and the policy can still say "and vaping" as far as I'm concerned, because they're both illegal. They're just illegal under different laws, and my understanding off the top of my head is that I know smoking is now illegal 100 feet away from our property. I think vaping is still just illegal on our property. And because of those distinctions, we're leaving vaping off the sign, but I do recommend keeping it in the policy. And all this has been developing over the last 2-3 weeks, so we just figured we'd see you tonight and tell you about that. And then if I remember correctly, we have, a process ongoing, Jason would remember, where we just look at the 3 or 4 oldest policies at any given time. So we have a few other policies with some like typos and grammatical type stuff that should be fairly easy and this should also be fairly easy for the committee to deal with. But in keeping with, you just came in, Noreen, but earlier Brian was saying summer's over.
Yeah, give a little pep talk to the chairs. I think both you guys missed it, but summer's over. Get the committee's going. So that was it in a nutshell.
So we think we should have a policy committee meeting. And if you want to talk about when to schedule it, feel free. But basically, what's been going on is that if you need Jenna to teach you how to use the doodle poll feature, you do, and you find out when your committee can meet, and you invite me, and off we go.
Okay.
So, yep.
Just a clarification, you say 100 feet from the building or from your property?
Any portion of the property. So if you take,
So you're talking the parking lot?
Yes.
yeah, if you take the yellow lot over here, and you go to the last inch of it on the east, and then you go 100 feet further, you can't smoke within 100 feet of our property, with the one exception that, I'm using that corner because there's a couple private houses up there.
Private property.
You can smoke inside your house, but my understanding of the law is you cannot smoke on your driveway because it's within 100 feet of the public library.
Anybody walking down Route 20?
Smoking a
Yes.
cigarette is breaking the law.
If you're driving your car on Weston.
I'm guessing your car's like your house, I don't
Sounds
know.
like something that could be challenged.
There's kind of an enforcement issue there.
Yeah, you probably don't have a cop pulling somebody over who's driving by smoking.
But I mean, technically, they could.
He or she could pull them over.
Yeah.
So.
What if they're biking?
All right, let's get back on track. All right, so policy is going to meet soon. All right, UHLS. All right.
Okay. This month, UHLS had a little gathering at the park in Colony, and all of the libraries were there participating. At least most of them were, because this was in connection with the journey that they had, going to all the libraries. So people got their passports stamped again, or got new passports and got them stamped by all the libraries. And, were able to speak to staff of the libraries. Tim was there, and Luann was there to...
And one person.
Yeah, to talk about, the Guilderland Library. And, there were probably, a couple hundred, I
think they got a registration of about 400, and at least a couple hundred showed up. It was just steady throughout, so.
Yeah, so that was...
Yeah, they gave out 400 donuts, and it was limited one per person, so they must have had 400 people. Couldn't think it.
Or close to 400 people anyway. And Guilderland also got some more money from Upper Hudson. We had previously been limited to 50% reimbursement for our projects, capital projects. And we passed a motion at the meeting to raise that. The smaller libraries would get construction aid awards up to 75%. They all got that. The larger libraries had a maximum of 50%. And there were 3 larger libraries who had projects. It was Colony, Greenbush, and Guilderland. Guilderland's was by far the most expensive project. So there was some money left over. After the 50% to the larger libraries and 75%. So the question was how to allocate or what to do with this money. There was a debate at the meeting. There was a gentleman from Steventown who wanted to give the money back because he just didn't think it was fair to raise it for anybody. But what we did vote on was to change the criteria that we used in deciding what libraries would get how much money. The criteria is subjective to begin with. It's not something that's statewide that you have to go by. What we changed was the criteria. Excuse me. The third criteria was for the reduced school percentage of children in the school district that got reduced lunches or free or reduced cost lunches, and that was changed to 19%. So by changing it from 30% to 19%, we got into the criteria, for the 3 large libraries. So the monies that were left over were divided 3 ways. It wasn't done percentage-wise because Guilderland would have gotten a lot more because our project was so much expensive. But so they divided it in 3. money that was left over, so Gilman got back $20,000 more, which was 2%, whereas Colony got, wound up with about 67%, and I think it was East Greenbush was 70-something percent, because their projects were so much smaller. So that was done in order so that we didn't have to return money from Upper Hudson to the state, which we didn't want to do in the first place. Okay, secondly, the ULON agreement was discussed, and I think that's out to the libraries now. It hadn't been revised in 3 years or so, and this time, it was, and so that, that has gone out for the libraries to sign, and I haven't heard of any libraries rejecting it, although a couple of them did have some questions.
What is this? What's the acronym?
ULON.
UHL.
Upper Hudson Library Association.
Network.
Okay, and this is like our agreement to be part of it?
Yeah.
Essentially to have a shared catalog, is what it,
Yeah,
it's not to be a member
computer-
of UHLS, but.
Oh.
Yeah, it's computerized, and we're to have access to the collections
Okay.
and stuff.
It's a minor cost increase, like you might expect.
Yeah, 2%. They said they'd raise it 2% for the next 3 years. And so, it seems like it's gonna work out fairly well. And committee appointments were made, and that's probably about it. There was quite a bit of debate, though, on the question of the monies, the construction aid application review. There was a lot back and forth, so the meeting went on for a while longer than it usually does, but.
Can I ask a question there, Herb? So, and also to kind of read this into the record of the viewers. So, our grant that we submitted was 900. I can't remember if it was 915,000 or 917,000, but we received the full 50% funding on that, which was just under 458,000. And that number is, despite the fact that I'm saying it on Facebook Live, not really going to be publicized until about September of next year. They've just gone through publicizing the $105,000 heat pumps grant that we got from the same program this year, and which we actually expect to check in about 2 weeks. So what you're saying, Herb, is that when they went to the second round of funding, we got another 20,000?
Yeah.
Is it 20,000 even?
We went up to 50, well, whatever, we went up to 52%.
Okay, so 52% of our thing, which was, the extra 2% was $20,000.
Approximately, I
Okay.
don't
Okay.
have the figure in front of me, because they.
So we'll get the figure, but
Yeah.
it should.
Donna didn't make me a copy of that, because Tim sent that out later.
So the 458 should become approximately 478, which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's a little more money, don't, pin me down on exactly the figures, because I don't have the, figures in front of me. I do have some other things, though, that, I do have the Bethlehem Public Library newsletter, the Colony Library newsletter, and the Albany newsletter, if anybody is interested in looking at them. One time I did pass it around, and there wasn't much interest, so if anyone is interested in
I think the land might be.
I have them already.
Yeah.
but-
in looking at it, tell me, and I will,
I'll take a look at all of these.
okay.
Thank you.
One good way to stay current with those other libraries, which helps them, is to just spend 15 minutes liking every library on Facebook that's in the Upper Hudson Library System.
And I got Colony too.
Is that end of your report?
Yeah, that's the,
Thank you.
that's the report. The important thing was the money.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think it's a great thing to hear. I think we're all very pleased. All right, well, next we'll move to foundation. Was Mike, we'll have to look for a new member for that, but can you give any sort of update?
I can give a quick summary, and I also have a text from Peter Hubbard, so I'll just check and see. He won't make it to the meeting. He just got home from New York, where his brother was having a medical procedure. Yes, I went to 45 minutes of the foundation meeting, and of course they're in the final throes of planning for the gala on September 28th. Currently, they've sold about 130 tickets. The sales total last year at this point was about 150. So they would appreciate anything you can do, such as sharing their Facebook post onto your own page, getting your next door neighbors to come, etc. There is a key difference between last year's gala and this year's gala in that there was real star power being honored in Paul Grandal and Gregory McGuire, and while our honorees are quite...
Well, we got some star power. What do you mean?
We have
Heavy hitters.
We have Chris Aldrich and Susan Novotny from the Bookhouse at Stuyvesant Plaza, neither of whom can actually make it to the gala, which will make it for a quick gala in terms of the speeches, but it's going to be a lot of fun. The theme, of course, is Feelin' Groovy. If you can't make it that night, you won't get to see my amazing costume until you see the photos come out. But they're feeling good about it. The sponsorship money this year was higher than in previous years, thanks to Steve Waxman, who is very, very devoted to anything he takes on. So it's going to be a good time. I think tickets are on sale for another 3 or 4 days, and then they'll close that out. They are asking that you would consider, each board member would consider bringing a bottle of wine or a few bottles of wine short for the wine pool. So if anyone has a bottle of wine that they're not planning to drink, or if you have 2 or 3 that you're not planning to drink, you could bring them to me, or you could bring them with you to the gala if you're attending the gala.
Do they have to be full?
Yes.
I guess I would kind of comment on Tim's. I strongly encourage you guys just to bring a bottle of wine. It does show kind of us, they're not super expensive, and it does mean a lot to them when we show up and kind of support them and do that kind of stuff. So if you are going, I really encourage you to bring a bottle of wine. It would really mean a lot to them. It would show that we are committed to kind of helping them. So.
And that includes the wine that was left over from last year?
Yes.
Got that too.
We have 22 bottles of wine left over from last year, and we're looking for 8 more to round out the wine pool, which is a cabinet with 30 drawers. Or actually, just to be precise, it's a library card catalog cabinet with 15 drawers that we intend to fill twice and sell the wine. So.
Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. That reminds me to mention something that I think I might have emailed you guys out about, but we were under the impression until recently that the library and the foundation were both limited to 4 events per year where they could serve alcohol, and we ran up against the limit of those, and so happened to ask Eileen Miller from Senator Amador's staff if they wouldn't mind looking into that, and what my distinction was making was that the library, you're limited to 4 permits per year per address. And I said, well, the library and the foundation share the same address, but they're 2 separate entities. So is there any chance we could get up to 8 permits per year? And in the subsequent discussion between the Senator's office and the State Liquor Authority and myself, it turned out that we are actually unlimited in the number of events where we could serve alcohol. So things like paint and sip type things, or our upcoming cabaret night, can happen as many times a year as we would want them to. Board meetings, there you go. The cost of applying is $36, and you have to apply at least 15 days before the event. So we are theoretically unlimited. Obviously, we're not going to do too many of those. But there are more and more events in libraries across the country where Paint and Sip is a great example, where you have a glass of wine and you go through a library program. Speaking of which, I have conceived a new program, and it's coming up on Friday, October 11th. It's a cabaret night at the library, and there are 60 seats, and currently 20 of them are reserved. I'd love to, there's no cost at this point, although there might need to be a cost on this event in the future. But it's an elegant jazz concert at the library with a glass of wine. So if you and your spouse, or just you, would like a nice night out, go on the library's website and register, and we'll see you there. Also, I forgot to say, the first one is October 11th, which is a Friday night, and kind of the concept is to use the library after it's closed. So the library closes at 7 on Friday nights, and this cabaret starts at 6:30, and will go until probably 8:30. I forgot to mention at the foundation meeting that Luann and I are running the event. Maria was going to join us, but ended up needing to be out of town on that date, and we could use a couple people to help us with the event. So I'll try to get back to the foundation and let them know, but if 1 or 2 board members wants to help out, it would be doing things like pouring the wine or checking the IDs at the door. It's not real heavy lifting type work, but having a couple
What's the date
extra
again?
bodies.
I'm sorry.
Friday, October 11th. Are you and Aaron up for it?
I am.
Okay, there you go. Yep.
So we'll see. I'll
Okay.
let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all I've got on foundation.
Okay, any comments? All right, fundraising. This is an ad hoc committee, and as this didn't meet, we may be just straight disbanding it going forward. Just a lot of stuff going on, and unless Chris wants to continue that, I'll probably just likely disband it in the future. So with that, we go to the directors and staff report.
Well, and I'll start that, but I'll just add on fundraising that I'm thankful to Chris and to Mike Marcantonio, who did a lot of work with us on that, and there were a lot of good connections made with the community. And if the committee is disbanded, which I believe I agree with, it's kind of for 2 reasons. One is that you really, if you're going to make a commitment to fundraising for a publicly funded organization, it's a whole long infrastructure that you need to develop over time. And at some point, we might want to consider, having an employee who was a director of giving or something like that. But largely, public libraries have not managed to breach that wall, so to speak. I was talking about it with a woman who's retired fundraiser recently, and she had raised money for, I always mix up Excelsior College and Empire State College. I think she was with Empire State. But she said universities have successfully bridged this and gotten people to realize that it's great to have a tax-funded institution, and it's even greater if individuals give to this institution. But it is not an easy thing for a couple of board members and a director to do on a part-time basis. It's relationship building. It would probably be done best through our foundation over the long term. I do believe in this concept, but you just can't do it unless you drop something else, and that's pretty much where we're at there.
And we also have a foundation, and so
Yeah.
like they raise money, so it's not as critical. We just kind of felt like we were not working at the same path. That's why we kind of created the committee.
We made some great progress while we were there, and a lot of the relationships we built still exist and will pay dividends in the future. So
I think you could still do something like where you advertise that we'd be open to naming rights for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing, and probably, maybe possibly do it through the foundation.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
It's not be willing to.
Yeah, I
What's
really
we-
have to sit down with Steve. But, you know, the great thing about Steve is if you can get him on something, he's like a
He's a
dog.
bulldog,
Yeah,
bulldog, yep.
so I just gotta convince him that this is where he has to get on.
So I don't want to read my report, but I do want to read the parts of the first paragraph. So, you know, you can give a chronological accounting of what you're doing, and you can also give I tried this time something different, which was to give a thematic accounting at the top. So I've been working a lot on the building project, on staff training, on both mindfulness and diversity, relationships with local organizations, including the Enterprise, the high school, the police department, the Guilderland IDA, our senator and our assembly member, and the Chamber of Commerce and U-Albany. I've been working on the annual audit and the negotiations with CSEA, and simply running the library. So that's what I've generally been working on. One thing I want to announce, and ever so slightly before the press release comes out from New York Library Association, but I took the opportunity to nominate Assembly Member Fahey for the Senator Hugh Farley Outstanding Library Advocate Award for New York State, and she has won that, and she will receive that on November 15th at the NYLA conference in Saratoga, and I'll have the honor of presenting it to her, so that's very nice. And that nomination was in part over the $250,000 SAM grant that she's earmarked for us, and also referred to other projects where she's supported us in the past. We've had incredible success lately at our outreach events. What I do is I write my report, and then a few days before the meeting I read everybody else's report, so highlighting a few things from everybody else's report. The telescopes that the foundation bought us have been very popular, circulating quite a bit, and the whole Library of Things concept is really a big part of the future of all public libraries, I think, and very successful here. In particular, Ann Wemple-Person's been doing a great job with outreach, and Maura Powers-Smith has been doing a great job with a great variety of programming, which is addressed in Maria's report. We had a tremendously successful youth carnival. I believe there's some pictures in your packet, and a successful summer reading program again. Jocelyn Wilder, the librarian who started the Three Little Birds story time, that's the one that was and is routinely drawing 160, 170 people, has now started a ukulele jam session. So we get about 30 people coming once a month to jam on their ukuleles, and as a related note, we're now circulating, I believe, 5 or 6 ukuleles, and they're going out. I want to call out the IT department for creating kind of a red box feature on the website so people would know popular films that were available. And also Sean's department has once again bought 10 more Wi-Fi hotspots, so we're up to, I believe, 40 or 40, okay. And they remain, mostly not in the library, mostly out circulating. And lastly, we have a new cash register that you'll read about a little bit if you haven't read already in the report for Phil Berardi in the CERC department. It's an iPad-based cash register, and it reduces our transaction fees for credit transactions from about 7% to about 2%. So I don't happen to know how many credit transactions we do, but I'm glad to pay a lesser percentage on them. And then lastly, if you look in his July report, another dramatic increase in the use of the self-check machines by the public. I think I may have said it before, but when self-check machines in stores and libraries first came along, I was against them because I love human interaction, and I was against them just until the point where I was fourth in line and there was an open self-check machine. So, and then another factor for self-check machines in libraries is that people sometimes, and I'm sure it happens every day, check out things that they would rather feel confidential about rather than share with another human being across a counter. One last thing I wanted to mention, we were tipped off by the school department that when the property tax bills went out a couple of weeks ago, that while the amounts of library tax, the dollar amounts billed to each household in Guilderland were correct, there was a mistake in the line that said what the percentage of the tax is. So it said that the tax is 2.70%, when in fact it's 2.28%. And so the school district sent out, they got rid of the SNN system, but whatever the new advising system is where they can let everybody know what's going on, and they mentioned the library bill as well as the mistake in the school tax bill. But for anyone from the public watching, there was no mistake in the dollar amount. It was just that the percentage was listed wrongly. And there is a page on the school website where it explains why you can have a 2.28% increase in your library property tax that falls below the 2% property tax cap limit. It's not the straight popular total 2% that people understand. It's rather a complicated formula that there would be no way to explain without going to the webpage. But it's, our increase was lawful, of course. We wouldn't, if we did we would never do an unlawful increase, but if we sought to exceed the tax cap, you all would know it, because you would have made the decision to do it. So anyway, that's everything I have for the director.
Okay, quick question. You mentioned in your report about that we're becoming a passport acceptance agent.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm not.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
So currently, the last time I went to get a passport, you could either go to the post office or certain drugstores, I believe, to get the pieces that you need. And we're basically joining the post office, and this is a movement that we believe is going to happen. I think it's been a couple months since I first went to a meeting on this. I know we would be the first library doing this in Upper
So
Hudson.
would we be taking the pictures of them and everything else?
We
or-
can go that far if we want, or we can do everything but the picture and require people to bring the picture in.
Okay.
And then
Because
we-
you do mention that this will enhance our revenue.
Yeah,
So
like
this is what we charge, and then we keep
Yep, we keep a
portion.
little portion, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember the numbers, but it's pretty similar to Easy Pass, which we sell for
Yeah.
$25 and we get 4.
Okay.
And so, we're open later hours than the post office. We're open on weekends. The staff's excited about it. If I'm not mistaken, Roseanne Marcantonio was initially part of it. I can't remember if I listed her here. What I'm thinking with her is that she was the one who suggested we sell Easy Pass years ago. But
So
at any
would that be
rate,
done at the
Circ
checkout?
Desk, Circ Desk, yeah.
Circ Desk?
Pretty
Oh, okay.
soon you're gonna need a passport to fly anywhere. though.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is horrible.
You can have
Within the
hands
country?
free.
Yeah.
You're gonna need a special enhanced
Or
ID.
Oh,
enhanced.
already got the
Or
enhanced
enhanced
license,
license.
I wasn't gonna mess around.
Passport.
Yeah, the enhanced license is easy enough, the
The
passport's
enhanced
a little.
license, you can't go out of the country though.
Can't go to
That's only
Canada.
for
You can go to Canada, you can
You can drive.
you can go to the Caribbean certain
Yeah.
places, but I think it's gotta be by boat instead of plane or
Yeah,
vice
I think you
versa.
can't fly out of the country, but you can like drive over.
Something
on
like
a
that, yeah.
boat.
Yeah, we go up to Canada a lot. I use the enhanced.
Margaret, I see you're on that list. Do you remember what we're gonna get on each transaction?
I do not.
I think it might be $375 or something like that.
Roughly, it's, yes.
So,
I assume you're working with people to help fill out all the forms, and I think there was some
Sure.
questionnaire involved in it.
sure. And we've got, I can't remember the federal agency that trains you on this, but they're coming on November 20th to train us. So
So maybe end of the year?
maybe end of the year or maybe shortly thereafter. So, and it'll probably be timely because of this
Change.
requirement for flying, so.
Then maybe I'll come here to get my passport.
There you go.
Yeah.
See?
You can come here and
I
get your
literally
flu shot
just
in a
renewed
couple
my
weeks.
passport yesterday.
There you go.
My whole family needs to, and we've been waiting because Albany's trying to get that started as well, and I don't know what their timing is yet, but it's not there.
Maybe the same person's gonna speak to them around the same time, Because they're out of Buffalo. The agency
Yeah.
is in Buffalo, so coming over here is a bit of a trip.
We should probably all do it together.
Thank you, Tim.
Ours is scheduled if they wanna come,
I'll talk to my wife and have her talk to you.
but it's a big room.
Is there any progress on the census? Because I know the library wanted to participate in the census.
So we had a census meeting today that we hosted for Upper Hudson Library System. And I also mentioned a meeting I convened with the census and a couple of community leaders. But it doesn't, right now it's an educational stage. And if I remember right, the census opens on April 1st. So you'll see an intensifying number of workshops and stuff in February and March. And, the Upper Hudson Library System has created what's called a complete count committee that attempts to just help publicize the census through events and so forth. It is the goal is to be almost completely online, but paper still does exist. So we will have both online and paper here.
So I had someone come to my door today to check my address for the census.
Interesting. So they're doing preliminary type, okay.
Either that or it was a scam.
Ah, that's true.
No, well, all he did was give me a piece of what they were doing and
Do they have a
asked
badge?
if.
They don't have
They don't have badges?
And asked if, that if there were anyone else living there.
And when are you not there? And those kind of questions.
Where is your safe?
All right, any more questions on the director staff report?
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, is there a motion to accept the director and staff report? Motion by Phil, second by Barry. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, adopted. All right, we're going to new business now. Consider changing the date for the April 2020 board meeting. Actually, I can take this. So Passover ends on the night of April 16th, which is the April board meeting. We have had discussions in the past that we have a tendency to have meetings on Jewish holidays, so we'd like to move this meeting. In addition, this meeting also happens to be on spring break week, so we may not have people on anyway, but the Jewish holiday is enough of a reason to move the meeting. So I'll send out a doodle poll, but is second, fourth Thursday, are those the best options for people? We'll stick to the Thursdays. Okay, I'll send out a doodle poll and we'll see what gets the most. So,
Thank you.
All right, so that's the first. So I actually had another that's not on the new business, was kind of board engagement. Tim and I have been talking. I feel like there's maybe a lack of board engagement at the moment. I know it's summer and we just kind of maybe got a little burned out from the expansion, but I think we have to kind of reassess now that summer's over, especially with the quorum email. We really struggled to get quorum today, and that really takes a lot. Jenna, Tim, Margaret, they prepare a lot for these meetings, and to not know if we have a quorum until a couple hours before is it's fairly stressful. It's a little stressful for me too, because I'm trying to contact people. So I guess the biggest thing is respond to the quorum email, and if you don't want to, we can figure out a different medium. I have 10 apps on my phone that do group texting, so if you guys want to do a different way, do a group text. I have GroupMe, whatever you want, but we have to respond to the quorum emails so that we know we have meetings. So I'll leave it to you guys. Is there a better way to do the quorum call? No? So, all right. So you guys will hopefully respond in the future. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. All right. So please, it's really important. If you do nothing else, you don't have to even talk at a meeting, but just respond to the quorum email. It's really important. So on kind of that second front, in the past, it's been a while, but we've done kind of like a board social kind of engagement to kind of get us back on all on the same page and going together. So I think I've been punting off a lot of stuff on other people. So I think I'm going to take this. I'm going to set up some event. We have money in our board development fund to do something. So I'm going to schedule some kind of event at, maybe Indian Ladder Farms we talked about, something that we can get out of here, still discuss some library stuff without making it too intensive. We could also kind of link it with the long-range planning. There's going to be a lot of discussions with that. It might be nice to kind of do a little bit of both. And I'll talk to you about that. But so I'd like to kind of do that to kind of get us all going on the same page again. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. But that might be in the fall sometime. So Any thoughts?
Sounds good.
Okay. Great, okay, so then we'll go to old business, change the delaying opening date September to October 2nd.
So this is probably very simple, and as you recall, I missed the July board meeting where this was discussed. But I've had a request from staff that I agreed with, that we needed to have substantial diversity training due to some incidents that have happened within the staff, based on, you know, somebody's country of origin or gender or something like that, age. So we all need to kind of renew our thinking on how a modern workplace functions. And we had asked for your permission to do that, to open one morning in September at 10 o'clock so that we could have the training from 8:30 to 10. And you gave your permission, my understanding. However, the presenters are available on October 2nd. So it's a very simple question. May I have your permission to do that on October 2nd rather than...
So the motion would be to open the library at 10 a.m. on October 2nd.
Right.
Does anyone make that motion? Barbara, seconded by Phil.
Do you want it specific to October 2nd in case there's a delay?
Or one of them calls me and says, I can't make it at the last minute.
You know, would it be better just to say, you pick a date and we approve it?
That's what you did in September, right?
But it doesn't have to be,
Keeping a
What
little
he's
bit
saying is
open-ended.
don't pick a date.
I'm just
say-
saying that whatever day you
One
pick
day.
to do it.
Just have one day of delayed opening for training purposes.
Would
Yeah,
that be-
let's do that.
That's fine with me.
Okay, so then we'll
Yeah.
change it to that.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Jenna? Okay. The motion is to provide, to give one.
To allow.
To allow the library to open at 10 a.m. on a day designated by the director
To be determined.
for staff training.
So related to that, there's no question here, but just a comment. The decision we made collectively to open at 9:30 is generally pretty popular, and most mornings we have 10 or 12 people waiting in the lobby to come in at 9:30, which actually seems, maybe I'm wrong, but seems to me like it's even more than we used to have for 10 o'clock. But it has had an unintended consequence of making it very difficult to have staff meetings because the workday starts at 9. So it's a little bit of an unplanned negative. So occasionally I will call people in at 8:30 and start their workday then. But training is, it's not so much going by the wayside. We're having to find ways to do the same training session twice in a given day so that we can do it at different times in the day to cover the desks, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Can we just be sure to post like a week ahead?
Yeah,
that
definitely.
We will
Yeah.
be
Mhm.
opening a half hour.
Yeah, and we'll use the electronic sign and so forth. Opening at 10 today. You know.
Right. So the motion was made by Barbara, seconded by Phil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, adopted unanimously. So second is Friday closing time in July and August.
Okay.
Okay.
So Brian and I were talking about this in advance, and I sincerely apologize, but missing this meeting in July, you know, it's now been something like 3 or 4 months since I first conceived of the notion. It was actually before we started our summer hours in July of 2019 that I thought it might be a good idea to ask you folks if we could close in the summer at 6 p.m. as opposed to 7 p.m., which is what the rest of the calendar year is. It's a little bit embarrassing to say this, and I'm kind of hoping Margaret can dig me out of this. I cannot remember why I suggested that.
Just to standardize it.
Oh, well, but now the calendar says Friday night closure is 7.
There was no decision on that. That
Oh,
was a
okay.
proposal.
Okay, so it's 6 for 10 months a year. We changed it to 6 for 10 months a year, and we inadvertently left it at 7 p.m. for July and August, which doesn't make sense. You'd want it the same closing time, whatever it is, every Friday of the year, correct? You know, that's where I was coming from in the spring. Okay, thank you for reminding me.
So the library closes at 6 on Fridays?
No, 7.
Well, what you passed is 7, but it had been 6, correct, Margaret?
It had
Only
been 6
for-
in the summer.
Only for July and August.
Right,
So-
6
Oh.
for July and August.
Library
We
is
changed
closing
it
in 30 minutes.
for the whole year.
Our
that
public
closed at
computers
7
will shut down in approximately 15
instead of
minutes.
9 like it used to.
Please save
Okay.
your work.
Yep.
And when we
If
did
you need
that,
to get a library card, please come to the checkout
you would
desk.
ask that
Thank
we
you.
keep it open in the summer till 7.
Mhm.
So it's uniform all year
Right.
round.
Okay. So we changed it from 9 to 7 for 10 months of the year. And then we had previously closed at 6 in the summer.
For years and years.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
But this past summer, we closed at 7, correct?
Yes,
Yeah, because we changed it, because you asked that it be changed.
I
right.
thought it was open later.
Seven.
No.
No, it was
that-
10 to
no.
9. It was open 10 to 9 for
Right.
10 months, and then closing at 6 for July and August.
Well, that was in the past.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah,
Right, but then we made a decision to close at 7 all year round.
right.
Yeah.
And then we,
And then last year that was changed?
No,
No,
it's still
okay.
7 all year
it's
round.
7 o'clock on Fridays all year round.
Okay.
So the suggestion is to move from 7 to 6 for 2
Yes.
months.
Yes.
Do we save any money?
Well, at the July meeting, I was asked for statistics,
Which I saw.
Yeah.
which I sent out to everybody.
Yes.
And that's where the discussion leads into now.
I saw the statistics.
Makes it easier for staffing, correct?
Yeah,
And that you would therefore save money, correct?
slightly, sure.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So,
So, alright. I actually did look at the statistics, but now, and I needed this discussion to even kind of fully grasp what I was even looking at with the statistics. So I guess unless someone feels really strongly one way or another, I'm good with kind of discussing this next month when I've had a chance to really kind of go through the numbers.
Yeah.
Unless someone has gone through the numbers and want to tell me.
No, because I was
A lot of numbers.
unable to open the documents, both at home or at the firehouse. So is there any way we can get a printout of what you sent?
Is that the PDF or the Excel?
I have no idea what you sent.
There were 2 different kind of files. One of them was a regular Adobe
I
file.
hit open and it wouldn't open at home. I went to the
Okay.
firehouse and I hit open and it wouldn't open there either.
maybe we could telescope what we sent, because we sent a lot of
So
files.
they're in different formats.
Right.
Depending on where it came from. For example, the IT door count is different than the format from PPS
Yeah.
or circulation.
How about this? If you email, I hate to always throw Jenna in this, but if you wanted a copy, can you email Jenna and she will make you copies? Do you have access to those?
I have a different idea.
I can do that.
I have what I think is a better idea, which is that I look at those documents and give you a report on what happens here between 6 and 7 on Friday nights, so that we don't compare it to how much stuff is checked out on Tuesdays at noon, like just zero into that hour and just the number of records questions, the number of books checked out or items checked out, and the foot traffic. And it could be in one email, couldn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would help. When I looked through it, it looked like the foot traffic was still pretty high, but the circulation numbers dropped off entirely, unless I was reading things wrong.
That's
So,
kind of the way I saw it too. Yeah.
so I didn't understand why it would even be that way then. Why would there
Yeah.
be, sometimes the last hour of Friday was one of the highest for foot traffic, but at the same time, the circulation looked like it was after hours.
There often are movies on Friday nights.
That would
might
make
be
sense.
part of it. But movies are, unless you're showing Frozen, sometimes movies are not that well
Or
attended.
different
Did the
events.
circulation stuff, was that just items taken out or items
Yeah.
returned also?
Just taken
Checked out.
Because a lot of times people come in late Friday to return stuff so that it's not, they don't accrue fines over the weekend.
weekend or something in summertime.
Speaking of which, I have a comment for you, but I'll wait till is that okay if we go ahead and?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're gonna have to make some comparisons. It'll
Yeah.
have to be like you have to compare other months and whatnot. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you have a
Yeah.
good sense of it. If you could kind of condense it down
Condense
for
it
us, that
for
would
you,
be.
and then we'll put it on the agenda for next month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The comment I want to make,
I
and
mean, there's no rush on it because it's the next
Yeah.
July.
Yeah, we got time.
Yeah.
my good friend Jason is going to think I'm going to the dry well one more time.
Are you gonna say something free? Is
Yeah.
something gonna be free again?
So,
Never
yes,
know.
so it's just one comment. So I'm at the library event at the Crossings, staffing our table, and a family of 4 comes up that lives in Guilderland, and we have an enthusiastic discussion about how much they love the Guilderland Public Library and libraries in general. And they said, however, we check out the maximum. They had small kids. We check out 75 items at a time. And if you go a day or two over with 75 items, you're talking about real money. So we found out that Albany doesn't charge fines, and we just go there.
Should probably have them try to come to a meeting.
Yeah. So,
Please try to.
Well, then we have 75 more items to, for other people to.
and our
All right,
circulation
let's
goes down by 75,
let's move. All right, let's move on.
as does our foot
It
traffic.
used
By
to be
4.
50.
Say what?
It used to be 50.
Yeah, it had been, we raised it, so that's,
Um,
I think, before my time. but anyway.
Okay, so we're gonna kick closing Friday from July and August till you give us kind of a scaled down report.
Yep.
All right, meeting, the minutes of the annual meeting in July. Let's do both meeting minutes together to make things a little easier.
I'm just gonna look at this for a
Okay.
minute.
Barbara moves. Is there a second? By Kathy. All those in favor of adopting both sets of minutes? Opposed? All right, those are adopted. So with that, we will enter executive session. Is there a motion? Motion. Irene, seconded by Phil. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, welcome to executive.